Hello, profound aspirants. Welcome, courageous travelers. Welcome to the luminous heart of Surrealism. Carl Jung once observed, "I would rather be whole than good." They tell you that spiritual awakening is about peace. They tell you it is about light and transcendence and perpetual joy. But Jung discovered the terrifying opposite. The final stage of the human journey is not about becoming holy. It is about becoming whole. And that single truth terrifies the modern mind more than anything else in existence. This transformation requires a sacrifice that most people, even the most dedicated seekers, refuse to make. It is not the sacrifice of your vices. It is not even the sacrifice of your ego. It is the sacrifice of your innocence itself. Most seekers stop exactly where it begins to feel uncomfortable. They meditate to find calm. They practice gratitude to find comfort. They surround themselves with positive affirmations like a protective wall. They mistake the aesthetic stage for the real thing. Jung called this spiritual bypassing before the term ever reached our modern vocabulary. He watched patient after patient reach what they thought was enlightenment, only to discover they had merely built a prison of light around their own unaddressed darkness. The real journey had not even begun. Jung documented something dangerous in his private, most intimate notes. He saw that some patients broke through to the final stage of the self, but others broke down completely into the abyss. The difference was not intelligence, it was not willpower. It was their raw capacity to endure what he called the great despair. This is the moment when your entire life stops making sense, when every achievement you've worked for feels hollow and brittle, when every relationship you cherish reveals itself as a social performance. This is not clinical depression. This is a visceral awakening to the fact that you have been living someone else's life. To understand what Jung discovered, we must go back to where it all began. In his clinical practice in Zurich, Jung encountered individuals who had done everything right. They had successful careers, they had loving, respected families, they had followed every moral and social rule society had ever given them. Yet they sat in his office describing a profound, soul-eating emptiness, an emptiness that no amount of achievement could ever fill. These were not broken people in the eyes of the world. These were people whose souls were suffocating under the weight of a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt dead from the inside. Jung realized these patients were experiencing the dark night of the soul, but he saw it wasn't a poetic metaphor. It was a psychological crucible, a furnace that either destroyed the individual or transformed them into something beyond what modern psychology could explain. He began documenting patterns, specific, terrifying stages that appeared again and again, stages that were navigated by those who successfully crossed this treacherous territory. What made Jung's discovery so dangerous was this one realization: the final stage of awakening is not safe. It is not comfortable. It does not happen in a peaceful meditation retreat. It happens in the wreckage of your old life. It happens when every structure you have built finally collapses. It happens when you can no longer maintain the illusion that you are who you pretend to be. The final descent begins with the collapse of the persona. You have spent decades building a social mask: the good child, the successful professional, the dedicated seeker. The mask fits so perfectly that you forgot it was a mask at all. Then one day, without warning, the mask cracks. You find yourself unable to perform the empty rituals that once defined you. The job that gave you a sense of identity now feels like a hollow joke. The spiritual practices that once brought you peace now feel like a chore. Friends who once energized you now drain your spirit completely. Jung called this the death of the false self. But it does not feel like a beautiful rebirth. It feels like total annihilation. You become a stranger in your own house. You become a ghost in your own life. People sense the shift. They ask if you are okay. You say yes, because the truth is too disturbing to speak out loud. The truth is that you are watching your entire identity dissolve, and you are powerless to stop it. You are alone in a way you have never been alone before. This isolation is not an accident of fate. It is a necessary preparation for what comes next. Your persona was not just a mask. It was a sophisticated defense system. a system protecting you from the most terrifying truth of human existence, that beneath the social facade, beneath the roles and the stories, there is a darkness you have spent your entire life running from. Jung called this darkness the shadow, and the second phase is the unavoidable confrontation with it. The second phase is the confrontation with the shadow. This is where the vast majority of seekers turn back. They turn back because the shadow is not just a list of your minor flaws or past mistakes. The shadow is the visceral realization that you are capable of every evil you have ever judged in others. It is the recognition of every cruelty, every betrayal, and every act of cowardice you've witnessed in the world. Jung discovered that we project our inner darkness onto the world, simply to avoid seeing it in ourselves. We call others manipulative too. Avoid facing our own manipulation. We condemn others as selfish to deny our own hidden selfishness. Let me be absolutely clear about what this means for you. The person you judged for lying, you are that person. The friend who betrayed you, you contain that exact same capacity. The narcissist who used you, that archetype lives within your own shadow. Every quality you despise in others exists in you, not as a distant potential, but as a lived reality. You have already done these things, maybe not in the external world of action, but in the secret chambers of your thoughts, in the dark desires and the hidden scripts of your mind, where you allow yourself to be who you truly are. The final stage of this journey forces you to withdraw every single one of those projections. You stop blaming your parents for your stagnation. You stop blaming your partner for your unhappiness. You stop blaming society for your lack of purpose. You look into the mirror of the unconscious and you finally see the truth. You are not a victim of the darkness around you. You are the darkness itself, pretending to be the light. This is the hardest step because it utterly destroys your sense of moral superiority. You can no longer be the good person who sits in judgment of bad people. You must become the whole person, who contains both the saint and the sinner. Jung documented how this realization manifests in the psyche. His patients described moments of shocking, painful clarity. They would remember a time they manipulated someone and disguised it as help, a time they hurt someone deeply and called it honesty, a time they abandoned someone in need and called it boundaries. The shadow does not reveal itself to you as a monster of evil. It reveals itself as every act you performed while believing you were fundamentally good. This is why most spiritual seekers never reach this stage of the journey. They have invested too much of their energy into the identity of being good. Their entire ego is built on being more evolved, more conscious, more enlightened than the people around them. The shadow destroys this identity completely and without mercy. It shows you that you are not more evolved. You are just more skilled at hiding your darkness. You are not more conscious. You are just more practiced in the art of denial. You are not more enlightened. You are just more convinced of your own moral superiority. If you have felt this realization tear through your chest like a cold blade, do not panic. You are not broken. You are finally breaking through. But the psychological pain does not end with this recognition. In fact, the heat of the furnace only intensifies from here. The confrontation with the shadow is merely the beginning of the end. The third phase is the actual death of the ego, not the spiritual teacher version where you imagine you transcend your ego through a peaceful meditation, but the brutal psychological version, where the part of you that desperately wants to be special dies screaming. The third phase is the actual death of the ego. This is not a metaphor. This is not a relaxing workshop. This is the brutal version where the part of you that wants to be special dies screaming. Your ego is not just your vanity or your pride. The ego is the very structure that makes sense of your chaos. It is the inner voice that says, I am this and not that. I am good and not evil. I am enlightened and not ignorant. Jung documented this phase as a literal psychological death. His patients described the sensation of dying while their bodies kept living. Everything they once identified with simply disappeared. Their professional achievements meant absolutely nothing. Their accumulated knowledge meant nothing. Their hard-won spiritual progress meant nothing. They were left with nothing but raw, naked existence. No story, no meaning, no purpose. just the terrifying freedom of being alive without knowing why. One of Jung's patients described it this way: "I woke up one morning and realized I had no idea who I was, not in a curious philosophical way, but in a terrifying existential way. My name felt like a word without any meaning. My face in the mirror looked like a total stranger. My entire life felt like a script someone else had written, and I had been forced to perform. Everything was revealed as arbitrary, random, meaningless. This is the void that spiritual teachers warn you about, but never truly prepare you for. This is the existential crisis that cannot be solved by positive affirmations or guided meditations. This is the moment where you realize that everything you thought was real is just a mental construction. Your personality is a construction. Your values are a construction. Your entire sense of self is a story you told yourself. To avoid the terror of being nobody, most people cannot tolerate this void for more than a few moments. They rush back to the safety of identity. They find a new mask, a better story, a different ideology. They mistake this new identity for awakening, but they have only rearranged the furniture in their prison. The truly awakened do not rush to fill the void. They sit in it. They let the death complete itself. They accept that they are nothing, nobody, no fixed thing that can be claimed or defended. Jung called this ego death, but he was careful to distinguish it from a mental breakdown. In a breakdown, the ego shatters and chaos floods in. In true ego death, the ego dissolves and spaciousness remains. You are not losing your mind. You are losing your identification with your mind. You are not going insane. You are waking up from the insanity of believing you are the voice inside your head. This phase can last for weeks, months, or even years. Jung documented patients who spent entire seasons in this liminal space, unable to go back to who they were, unable to move forward into anything new, suspended perfectly between death and rebirth. And here is what Jung discovered that most modern psychologists still refuse to acknowledge. This is not pathology. This is transformation. The caterpillar must dissolve into a liquid soup before the butterfly can emerge. There is no shortcut through the dissolution. Then, and only then, comes the fourth phase, the union of opposites. The fourth phase is the union of opposites. You are no longer trying to be good. You are integrating the fact that you are both light and shadow, both creation and destruction, both love and hate. This is what Jung truly meant by individuation. It is not about becoming a better person. It is about becoming a complete person, a whole person. And here is why this stage is considered dangerous by society. A whole person cannot be manipulated. They see through every social game because they have recognized every game within themselves. Let me tell you what this looks like in the real world. The individuated person is not nice. They are kind. Niceness is a performance. It is a social transaction. Kindness is authentic. It is a choice made from strength. They do not smile when they are angry. They do not agree when they disagree just to avoid conflict. They do not pretend to care about things that bore their soul. They have dropped every social script that requires them to be less than honest. This makes people around them deeply uncomfortable. The individuated person sets boundaries that seem brutal to those who are used to using others. They say no without providing an explanation. They leave conversations that drain their energy. They cut contact with toxic people without a shred of guilt. They refuse to participate in family dysfunctions. They will not enable your victim story. They will not rescue you from your own consequences. They will not pretend your behavior is acceptable just to keep a fake peace. This is not cruelty. This is wholeness. When you have integrated your shadow, you know that enabling others actually prevents their growth. When you have died to your ego, you no longer need people to like you. When you have united your opposites, you can be both fierce and gentle, depending on exactly what the moment requires. You are no longer bound by the need to be consistent for other people's comfort. You are free to be appropriate to the truth of the situation. Jung observed something fascinating about those who reach this stage. They develop what he called a dangerous presence. Not dangerous as in violent. Dangerous as in they can see through every mask, they can feel every lie, they can sense every manipulation before it is even fully formed, and they can no longer be fooled, not by others, and certainly not by themselves. This makes them terrible guests at normal social functions. Small talk becomes unbearable because they see the frantic dance of egos beneath every trivial conversation. Networking becomes impossible because they cannot pretend to care about connections that are purely transactional. Dating becomes bizarre because they see through every performance in the first 5 minutes. They know who you are beneath your presentation, and they do not need you to be anything other than that. A whole person is not trying to transcend their humanity. They have accepted it completely. They know they are selfish and generous, cruel and compassionate, wise and foolish. They do not try to be only the good parts anymore. They own all of it. This total ownership creates a kind of power that cannot be taught or faked. It is the power of being real in a world that rewards performance. This is the transformation that most seekers avoid at all costs, because being whole means giving up the identity of being a good person. It means accepting that you contain both the murder and the saint, both the betrayal and the loyalty, both the cowardice and the courage. You are not one or the other. You are the tension between the two. This makes you unpredictable. It makes you ungovernable. It makes you free. They stopped caring about awakening. They stopped caring about enlightenment. They stopped caring about being special or evolved or different from anyone else. They simply were. They existed without needing their existence to mean anything. They lived without needing life to have a grand, preordained purpose. They loved without needing love to last forever. The fifth phase is the return. After the descent into the absolute darkness of the unconscious, after the agonizing death of the ego, after the high-voltage union of all your opposites, you come back to the world, but you are not the person who left. Jung described this as the return of the hero. But here is the twist. The hero is not celebrated by the crowd. The hero is often feared. Why? Because you now see what others are desperate not to see. You feel what others have spent their entire lives trying to numb. You know what others refuse to know about themselves. You are calm in the center of total chaos because you have already been to the very bottom of the abyss. You are dangerous in the best possible way because you cannot be threatened. Why? Loss. How can you threaten someone who has already lost everything, including their own identity? You cannot be seduced by power, because you know power is a temporary illusion. You cannot be corrupted by pleasure, because you know pleasure is a passing weather pattern. You have become what the awakened empath becomes: impossible to manipulate, impossible to control, impossible to break. The struggle stops in your life not because you finally fixed yourself, but because you finally accepted yourself. You do not fight the shadow anymore. You do not deny the darkness. You integrate it, you become it, and in becoming it, you finally transcend it. This is the central paradox Jung discovered in his years of clinical research. The only way to become light is to become darkness first. The only way to become whole is to shatter completely. The only way to truly awaken is to die while you are still breathing. People who reach this final stage describe a strange, quiet peace. It is not the peace of having everything figured out. It is the peace of knowing you will never figure it out. It is not the peace of achieving enlightenment. It is the peace of realizing there was nothing to achieve in the first place. It is not the peace of becoming whole. It is the peace of realizing you were always whole, and the fragmentation was just a story you were told. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but he also knew the staggering cost. Most people will never pay it. They will live and die within the persona. They will project their shadow onto their neighbors and their enemies until their very last breath. They will cling to their ego even as it suffocates the life out of them. They will never reach this final stage because the final stage requires something most humans cannot give: the willingness to be nobody, the courage to be nothing, the strength to let everything you thought you would die, so that everything you actually are can finally be born. This path is not for the many. It is for the few who cannot turn back, the ones who have seen too much, the ones who have felt too deeply, the ones who can no longer pretend. If you are reading this and your chest feels tight, if your heart is racing, you are likely one of them. You are in the descent. You are in the blackening, what the alchemists called the nigredo. You are in the death that must precede the rebirth. Let me tell you what Jung never wrote in his published academic works, but recorded meticulously in his private journals. He went through this exact process himself. His confrontation with the unconscious from 1913 to 1919 was his own terrifying descent into the final stage. He documented visions and dreams that would have gotten him committed to an asylum if he had shared them publicly at the time. He experienced the death of his professional identity. He experienced the total dissolution of his ego. He felt the terrifying freedom of no longer knowing who he was, and he came back changed. If you read Jung's work before and after his dark night, you can feel the shift. Before, he was a brilliant clinical psychologist. After, he was something else entirely, a mystic, a prophet, a man who had been to the underworld and returned with knowledge that could not be spoken directly, only whispered in symbols. He spent the rest of his life trying to create maps for others, trying to leave breadcrumbs so that those who followed would not feel so alone in that absolute darkness. But he knew the ultimate truth. The final stage cannot be taught, it can only be lived. No book can prepare you for the smell of the furnace. No teacher can walk the path for you. No technique can shortcut the process of dissolution. You must go through it yourself. You must feel the terror yourself. You must die to the old self yourself, and you must be willing to do it without any guarantee that you will ever come back. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not going backwards. You are going through the final stage. The stage most people never reach. The stage Jung called individuation. The stage where you stop being who they told you to be and finally become who you actually are. This is the most dangerous journey because there is no map. There is no guru who can walk it for you. There is only you, and the darkness, and the slow, terrifying realization that the darkness is you. But on the other side of this darkness is something most people never experience in 1,000 lifetimes. Freedom. Real, unadulterated freedom. Not the freedom to do what you want, the freedom to be what you are, without apology, without explanation, and without needing anyone else to understand it. You become the thing Jung spent his entire life trying to explain, the self, the totality, the union of all opposites, the end of the war between who you are and who you think you should be. And here is what no one tells you about reaching this final stage. Life does not become easier. You do not magically transcend all human problems. You still feel pain. You still experience loss. You still get angry and sad and afraid. But your relationship to these experiences transforms completely. You are no longer identified with them. You feel them fully without becoming them. You experience emotions as weather passing through, intense, real, and temporary. The individuated person does not bypass pain with spiritual concepts. They feel it deeper than anyone else. But they do not make stories about it. They do not ask, why me? They do not search for a lesson to make it hurt less. They simply allow pain to be pain, grief to be grief, fear to be fear. And in that absolute allowance, something miraculous happens. The emotions move through you faster. They do not get stuck. They do not become trauma. They become experience. Jung called this the transcendent function, the ability to hold two massive opposites simultaneously, without needing to resolve the tension. You can be devastated and perfectly okay at the same time. You can be terrified and courageous at the same time. You can be uncertain and profoundly confident at the same time. You are no longer trying to be one thing. You are the spaciousness that contains all things. If you have felt the weight of these words, if your soul recognizes the truth of the descent, then you understand that you are at a crossroads. You are no longer a victim of your sensitivity. You are an alchemist in progress. Jung believed that the lead of our suffering could be transmuted into the gold of the self. But this alchemy requires tools. It requires a container. It requires the ability to turn overwhelming emotion into piercing clarity. This is where the path of the awakened empath begins to take form. You are not broken because you feel too much. You are simply uncalibrated. You are standing in a storm without a center. But what if you had a drill for your psyche? A way to build Jung-inspired boundaries that are not walls of fear, but filters of wisdom? What if you could train your perception to see the shadow before it speaks? to recognize the projection before it binds you. This is the work of Surrealism, turning the chaos of the unconscious into the sovereignty of the individual. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, we take these high-level concepts and ground them into the earth of your daily life. Through practical drills and step-by-step training, you learn to stop rescuing others at the expense of yourself. You learn to stop being the sponge for the world's darkness and start being the light that reveals it. This is about turning overwhelm into wisdom. It is about 236 pages of deep psychological navigation, a guide designed not to make you better, but to make you real. The ebook, crafted by the minds at Surrealism, is a manual for the soul's survival in a world of performance. It includes exclusive chapter videos that dive deeper than words can go. It is for the person who is ready to move from the death of the old identity into the active rebirth of the integrated self. Begin your training now at www.google.com/search/thesurrealmind.com. Because the world does not need more nice people. The world is starving for whole people. It is starving for people who have faced their darkness and are no longer afraid of yours. It is starving for individuals who have walked through the fire of the final stage and come out as something unshakable. You have the theory, you have the map. Now, you must decide if you have the courage to walk the distance, to feel deeply while thinking clearly, to be the master of your own internal fortress. The journey of the alchemist is not about leaving the world. It is about returning to it with eyes that truly see, with a heart that truly feels, and with a presence that cannot be moved by the winds of shame or the masks of others. Your training has already begun the moment you chose to stay in the darkness of this realization. Now, let us finish the work. As we stand at the threshold of this final realization, understand that the journey of individuation is never truly over. It is a continuous rhythmic dance between the self and the unconscious, but you are no longer the one being led. You are the one who has reclaimed the lead. Jung often spoke of the privilege of a lifetime. That privilege is to, finally, after all the masks and the deaths, become who you truly are. The person watching this right now is not the same person who clicked on this video. You have been initiated into the realization that your pain was not a mistake, your overthinking was not a flaw, your sensitivity was not a burden. They were all the gravitational pulls of the self, trying to bring you back to your own center. You have looked into the void, and for the first time, the void didn't swallow you. It gave you back your own reflection. From this day forward, when the world tries to shame you, you will see the projection. When your ego tries to scream, you will feel the spaciousness. When you feel alone, you will realize you are finally in the company of your own wholeness. This is the freedom Jung spent his final days contemplating. The freedom to exist without the need for a script. The freedom to be a sovereign individual in a world of puppets. Thank you for traveling this far into the shadows with me. If this journey has touched the core of your being, I invite you to stay within our circle. Subscribe to Surrealism. Join a community of seekers who are not afraid to face the furnace. If you are ready to apply these lessons in real time, visit www.google.com/search/thesurrealmind.com and begin the alchemist's path. Don't go back to the sleep of the persona. Don't let the mask harden again. Stay awake, stay whole, stay dangerous to the illusions that try to bind you. I am proud of the courage you have shown today. The path is open, the darkness is illuminated. I'll see you in the depths, and I'll see you in the shadows.